The Wimbledon crowd had gathered expecting greatness, and for the first 2 sets, that's exactly what they got. Alex Eala, the 19-year-old Filipino phenom who had already made history by becoming the first Filipino to win a junior Grand Slam singles title, was facing off against Italy's Jasmine Paolini, a veteran player known for her consistency and fighting spirit. From the very first point, Eala displayed the kind of tennis that had experts predicting she would one day lift the Venus Rosewater dish herself. Her forehand was firing with laser precision, her movement on the grass was surprisingly fluid for someone who grew up on hard courts, and her serve was causing Paolini all kinds of problems. The first set went to Eala in stunning fashion, 6 feet 3 inches, and the Filipino fans in the stands were already dreaming of an upset that would shake the very foundations of women's tennis. But, as the match progressed into the second set, something began to shift. Paolini, ever the competitor, started finding her rhythm, and the rallies became longer, more grueling, and increasingly tense. The crowd could feel the momentum swinging, and with it came a level of intensity that Wimbledon hasn't seen since the days of Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova trading blows across the net. Then came the moment that would change everything. It happened at 3-3 in the second set, during what should have been a routine point. Eala hit what appeared to be a perfect cross-court forehand winner, painting the line with such precision that it seemed almost effortless. But the line judge called it out. Eala stopped, her racket still raised in celebration, and turned to look at the mark with disbelief written across her face. The crowd erupted, some in agreement with the call, others in outrage, but the damage was done. Eala had used her challenge, and Hawkeye confirmed the ball was indeed in, but the point had already been awarded to Paolini. The rules of tennis are clear once the challenge system has been exhausted, the call stands, and Eala could only watch as the umpire awarded the point to her opponent. That single moment, that one controversial call, seemed to drain the energy from Eala's game. She dropped the second set 4-6 and found herself in a dogfight that was never supposed to be this difficult. The third set became a battle of wills with both players pushing each other to the absolute limit, and when Paolini finally secured the victory 7-5, it was clear that the controversy would overshadow everything else that happened on that court. Hours after the match, Alex Eala stepped into the press conference room with a look in her eyes that suggested she was ready to say what had been burning inside her since that controversial second set moment. When she sat down at the table, there was an energy in the room that was palpable, a sense that this was going to be a moment of reckoning. The first question came quickly, as it always does in these situations, about the match itself, about her performance, about the missed opportunities that could have changed the result. But Eala wasn't interested in the scripted responses that tennis players are expected to give. She leaned forward, her voice steady but carrying an undeniable weight of frustration, and said something that would send shockwaves through the tennis world. I didn't lose this match because I wasn't good enough. I lost because the moment I challenged that call, something changed out there, and I don't think it was just about the point. The room fell silent, and even the most seasoned reporters knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Eala continued, her words becoming more pointed as she explained how she felt the officiating had not just been questionable but had actively influenced the outcome of the match. She didn't directly accuse Jasmine Paolini of any wrongdoing, but she made it clear that she believed the environment had become hostile in ways that had nothing to do with the quality of tennis being played. When you're out there fighting for every point, the last thing you need is to feel like you're fighting against more than just your opponent, Eala said, her voice cracking with emotion. I respect Jasmine as a player, but there were moments today where I felt like the scales weren't balanced, and that's not what Wimbledon is supposed to be about. The press conference ended with Eala walking out to a room full of stunned journalists, and within hours, her words had been shared millions of times across social media platforms. The hashtag #JusticeFor Eala began trending globally, and fans who had watched the match started analyzing every single controversial moment in excruciating detail. What they found only added fuel to the fire, as multiple questionable calls seemed to have gone against the young Filipino throughout the match, leading to a groundswell of support from fans who believed she had been robbed. As news of Alex Eala's press conference spread like wildfire across the tennis world, the reaction from fans was immediate and overwhelming. Across social media platforms, from Twitter to Instagram to TikTok, the conversation shifted from celebrating Paolini's victory to demanding accountability for what millions now believed was an injustice that had cost Eala a rightful place in the next round. The comments section of the official Wimbledon YouTube channel was flooded with angry messages, with fans uploading slow-motion replays of the controversial call that had started everything. One particular fan video which broke down every questionable line call during the match accumulated over 5 million views in less than 24 hours, making it one of the most viewed tennis-related videos of the year. The tennis world is no stranger to controversy, but this felt different. This wasn't just a bad call here or there, this was a systematic breakdown of what fans expected from the sport's most prestigious tournament. What made the situation even more intense was the demographic of fans who were rallying behind Eala. The Filipino community, which had already shown incredible support for their young tennis star, mobilized like never before. From Manila to Los Angeles to London, Filipino fans organized watch parties, created digital campaigns, and even began reaching out to tennis officials through official channels demanding a formal review of the match. The Philippine Sports Commission issued a statement expressing concern over the officiating, and several Philippine senators took to social media to voice their support for ELA and call for a comprehensive investigation into the standards of officiating at Wimbledon. But the support wasn't limited to Filipino fans. Tennis enthusiasts from all corners of the globe were united in their disbelief at what they had witnessed. Longtime tennis analysts who had covered the sport for decades were openly questioning the decisions made during the match, and retired players who had experienced similar controversies during their careers added their voices to the chorus of discontent. Former Grand Slam champions were divided on the issue, with some defending the officials and others calling for immediate changes to how matches are officiated. In the midst of all this chaos, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. The tennis establishment was being forced to confront uncomfortable questions about fairness, transparency, and the role of officiating in determining outcomes of high-stakes matches. As the controversy surrounding Alex Eala and Jasmine Paolini continued to escalate, the tennis world found itself sharply divided between those who believed Eala was right to speak out and those who felt she was making excuses for a loss that should have been handled with more grace. The divide wasn't just between fans, it was between players, coaches, officials, and even the media, each group bringing their own perspectives to what had become the most talked-about incident of the entire Wimbledon tournament. On one side, a coalition of younger players rallied behind Eala, seeing in her struggle a reflection of their own frustrations with an establishment that often seemed resistant to change. Several prominent players, including some of Eala's contemporaries who had also experienced questionable officiating, posted messages of support on social media, praising her courage for speaking truth to power in a sport that traditionally discourages public criticism. Alex said what many of us have felt but been too afraid to say, wrote one top 20 player in a now-viral Instagram post. It's time for tennis to take a hard look at how matches are officiated, especially when so much is on the line. On the other side of the divide were the traditionalists, who argued that Eala's comments were unbecoming of a professional athlete and that she should have accepted the outcome with dignity. Jasmine Paolini herself was caught in an awkward position, having done nothing wrong but now finding herself at the center of a firestorm she never asked for. In her own post-match interview, Paolini seemed confused by the controversy, stating that she had simply played the match as she always does, and that any questionable calls were the responsibility of the officials, not her. "I understand Alex is frustrated, but I didn't make any decisions out there," Paolini told reporters, her voice carrying a hint of defensiveness. "I just played tennis and I won, that's all I can control." The Italian fans rallied behind their player, accusing Eala and her supporters of creating drama where there was none, and soon, a full-blown war of words had erupted online, with fans of both players engaging in heated debates that often crossed the line from passionate to toxic. In the middle of all this chaos, Wimbledon officials found themselves in an unenviable position, forced to respond to the growing outrage while maintaining the tournament's reputation as the pinnacle of tennis excellence. As the dust begins to settle on one of the most controversial matches in recent Wimbledon history, the questions that remain are perhaps even more significant than the ones that have already been asked. Alex Eala, who entered this tournament as a promising young player, has now emerged as something far more than just a rising star. She has become a symbol of resistance against what many perceive as an outdated and flawed system. The media's portrayal of Eala has shifted dramatically, from stories about her bright future to examinations of her courage in the face of adversity. And she now finds herself carrying the weight of expectations that number 19-year-old should have to bear. But Eala has always handled pressure with grace, and those close to her suggest that she is already using this experience to fuel her preparation for future tournaments, determined to prove that the controversy won't define her career. "I've learned a lot from what happened at Wimbledon," Eala said in a recent interview, her voice now carrying a tone of resolve rather than frustration. "I learned that sometimes you have to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people might judge you. I learned that my voice matters, and I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew." For Jasmine Paolini, the path forward is equally uncertain. While she did nothing wrong, the shadow of controversy will follow her for the rest of the tournament and possibly longer, with every match bringing renewed scrutiny and questions about whether the officiating was truly fair. Paolo Lee's team has been working hard to manage the narrative, focusing on her tennis rather than the drama, but they know that the questions won't disappear easily. The tennis establishment, meanwhile, is facing perhaps the most uncomfortable reality of all, that its systems, long believed to be among the best in sports, may need serious reform. Calls for expanded use of technology, independent reviews of controversial matches, and greater transparency in officiating decisions are growing louder with each passing day. Wimbledon officials have promised a thorough review of the match, but many fans remain skeptical, believing that any review will simply be window dressing designed to protect the tournament's reputation. As the days turn into weeks and the controversy continues to percolate, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Alex Eala's Wimbledon journey may have ended in disappointment, but her story is far from over. In fact, for millions of fans who watched her stand up for what she believed in, her story is just beginning. And they will be watching with bated breath to see what this extraordinary young woman does next. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to World Zone right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.